I've been talking about drug price reductions for a long time. And now we're doing things that nobody was, let's say, because I'm speaking on behalf of all of us, bold enough to do.
An investigation finds that $750,000 was wasted in the Trump White House on brand name pharmaceuticals. They didn't want the generics, they needed the brand name stuff. So apparently in the White House, there is a pharmacy. That's understandable. A lot of these types of government buildings and complexes have their own in-house resources. They can sort of function like mini towns. This particular White House pharmacy is run by the White House Military Office, and it is there to provide senior staff and officials with pharmaceuticals. However, it is not run by a licensed pharmacist. In 2018, during the Trump administration, there were some complaints about how the pharmacy was being run and how the pharmaceuticals were being distributed. The Department of Defense Office of the Inspector General, or the OIG, did an investigation interviewing military office officials who worked in the White House between 2009 and 2018. And they investigated activity up until 2020. So that's covering both the Obama and the Trump years. But the pharmaceutical investigation itself was more focused on the Trump years immediately before and after those complaints came in. Here's what the OIG investigation found. Handwritten records often containing errors, missing pertinent information, and being too illegible to decipher. They also found improperly disposed of substances, and they found evidence that over-the-counter substances were available for staffers to just help themselves to. They also found that more expensive name-brand pharmaceuticals were often dispensed when generic brands would have been more than sufficient. For example, during the Trump administration, the White House pharmacy spent nearly $100,000 on the name brand drug Provigil. Provigil basically helps you stay awake, but it's typically prescribed to people with narcolepsy or other sleep disorders, and it costs 55 times more than its generic counterpart. They also spent nearly $50,000 on Ambien to help put them to sleep, which costs 174 times more than the generic. And according to the investigation, these drugs would just be bagged up and handed out to staff members prior to overseas trips or other long-haul types of activities. It's estimated that while the White House Executive Medical Clinic only had 60 enrolled patients, it actually provided care to 6,000 people, with the DoD potentially footing the bill. Also, a special patient code for these employees made it difficult or impossible for Walter Reed to properly issue medical bills, resulting in nearly $500,000 worth of outpatient fees waived by Walter Reed between 2017 and 2018.
I'll be the doctor here, and I promise you no copay.
Okay. Sounds good to me, Mark.
Senator, good to see you. You tweeted, Mr. Trump, guess what? The Walter Reed Hospital you were at, where you claimed you got excellent, high-quality care, that is a 100% government-funded, government-run, dare I say, socialist facility.
What they're doing is socialized medicine, and it's not acceptable.
So next steps, the OIG has given some recommendations as to how the White House pharmacy can be better run, and the pharmacy is taking those recommendations seriously. So while the abuse of pharmaceuticals is certainly a story here, along with the abuse of the American healthcare industry, the abuse of tax dollars and government resources, and the fact that some Americans really just live in a different America than the rest of us, there's also a bigger commentary here about our national dependency on pharmaceutical drugs just to get through the workday. These White House officials were taking pills to help them stay awake and then different pills to put them to sleep. Making exceptions for those who do have actual medical disorders. These are such natural processes for our human bodies to go through. I'm going to venture a guess and say that most of these staffers taking these drugs have not been diagnosed with narcolepsy. And I get that many of us have to work very, very hard just to make ends meet or to meet the expectations of our superiors, but at what cost? I don't even want to blame these staffers for abusing the drugs that were being given to them, because it seems as though they were in a situation where, one, the use of those drugs was normalized and even encouraged, and two, the demands of their jobs seem to require some form of assistance. Most of us regular people are just chugging coffee throughout the day, and we all remember the cautionary episode of Saved by the Bell when Jessie got addicted to caffeine pills when she was just in high school. But there was also that Adderall shortage during the pandemic that had millions of Americans wondering how they were going to do their everyday 9-to-5 jobs. And it's not saying much to say that in this country, specifically our work-centric culture, our collective fear of laziness, and our obsession with productivity is detrimental to our physical, mental, and emotional health. Many of the benchmarks against which we govern our own lives are skewed. Americans are working more and working harder than anyone else has ever worked in the history of the world, and we're still constantly being told that it's not enough. This is a conversation that needs to be had, and while there are some who are having it, I'm not hearing it as much as I would like to. All right? That's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out my podcast, Modern Context. Thanks.